All right, Vermont Senator Peter Welch held a roundtable discussion with Canadian business leaders on President Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. While Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said that Canada could only go so far in responding to tariffs given the mismatched size between the two economies, Senator Peter Welch joins us right now. He's a member of the Finance Committee in the Senate. And Senator, this is Vermont's biggest trading partner. That's Canada. You have called these tariffs really, really stupid. What do you think happens on April 2nd?
Well, it's going to hurt Vermont badly. And by the way, Vermont is one of 34 states where Canada is our major trading partner. So this is a big deal, especially along the northern border. I see the tariffs as nothing but downside. At our tariff roundtable, where we had Canadian businesses and Vermont businesses, they talked about how this totally disrupts their supply chains, how the back and forth is going to hurt the manufacturing, the ag relationships, things that have been built up over years. Vermont's going to get hit hard because we get a lot of our electricity, a lot of our home heating fuel, a lot of our gasoline. We could see prices go up on a gallon of gas about 40 cents. So it's hard to see how the Canadian tariffs are anything good for the country, particularly when the president is linking those essentially to the 51st state talk, which is incredibly insulting and eroding the kind of trusted relationship we've had with Canada for decades.
I asked Senator whether we had our tariff full screen. I made it the other day. I'm not sure we still have it. And I have some empathy for what you're saying about Canada. I don't know if he's explicitly linked it to the 51st state. There are still a lot of dairy stuff, and there are some problems, but most of it's USMCA compliant. They're within those guidelines, which was negotiated by President Trump. So maybe this is a bargaining ploy. What about some of the, here it is, and I don't know if you've got a monitor there, Senator, but this is some of the tariffs that we see around the world. And they're still, we are treated very badly in certain places in terms of not just tariffs, but also protectionist policies that really have, accomplish the same thing. On April 2nd, would you see at least the rationale for doing some reciprocal tariffs? As a Democrat, I think it's almost impossible for you to even admit that it might make sense, even though Biden kept a lot of tariffs on.
No, I do. I can see an argument for tariffs in the appropriate case. I mean, we're getting ripped off by China. This is a good example. We've lost jobs. They have unfair trade practices. In my view, tariffs are a legitimate tool for us to protect our industries against and our workers against unfair trade practices, which are well documented with China. But I think where you apply indiscriminately these tariffs for whatever reason, for quote negotiation, when in the case of Canada, it's going to have an immediate negative impact on us. And I do think this bargaining chip thing is overused by the president. It should be explicit. If there are appropriate reaction to unfair trade practices, I'm all on board. I'll be supportive. But where you're doing them because you're having this loose talk about a 51st state, and in fact, whatever you may and I may think of that, the Canadians regard that as a serious assertion on the part of the president. And it's starting to erode the confidence they have in what has been their most trusted ally. So tariffs are appropriate in the appropriate circumstances, but they're really, really damaging in inappropriate circumstances. And that is, in my view, definitely the case with Canada.
Senator, the country is so divided, and just seeing the acrimony on both sides, they can't talk to one another. They're hurling insults at one another. I'm talking about between Senator Schumer and the other Democrats on this. But this is that is a case of how divisive everything is. I know you thought I was going to say between Republicans and Democrats. But
you got me.
I got you. But even within the Democratic, did you agree with what Senator Schumer did? And do you think he's being unfairly criticized for doing what he thought was right to keep the government open?
As you know, I voted no. And of course, Senator Schumer voted yes. But all of us understood this was a choice that was manufactured in the Republican House, where there was no Democratic involvement whatsoever. That's not usually the case. And it was a very bad continuing resolution. By the way, among other things, the House stripped its own authority to address tariffs. And that's our constitutional right and obligation to do. So Schumer was faced with the question that a leader is faced with, which is the least bad alternative. And his view was that the shutdown would have been catastrophic. It's hard to disagree with that, but there's such an appetite for us to stand up to Trump. And I'm in that camp where he's doing these things like the Canadian tariffs that are so damaging, and where essentially he's, I think, cutting, it's an understatement to say he's cutting corners on the law.
Right. Well, I was going to talk to you. My son likes you, says you're a great guy. I was really going to get you on. It's just Democrats are against border security, against cutting waste and fraud, against deporting illegal immigrants, against free speech that they don't like, but forced free speech for Hamas and the protesters on the cause. That put you at 25% approval right now. I mean, people voted this guy in. And I think you're lost in the wilderness, right? You don't even stand for kids that have, brain cancer and for terrorists that are captured. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And let me just say something back to you very directly. The Democrats blew it on a number of issues, and we have to have some self-reflection.
My son likes you. Yeah, I want to have you back. And I think I can't find people like you anymore on that side of the aisle. But will you come back? I appreciate it, Senator.